But in our first hour today, President Obama is visiting Fort Hood down in Texas, and Vice President and Vice President Biden is in Washington State at another military base, and honoring the people who died as a result. Actually, in the case of President Obama, honoring the people who died as a result of well, we'll see. We don't know actually, what happened yet, but we do know that this major was a Muslim, and if we're going to purge Muslims from the military, should we purge all religious fanatics? Should Christians be removed from the military? Because U.S. Navy chaplain Gordon Klingenschmitt declared a fatwa against Jew Mikey Weinstein and progressive Christian Barry Lynn. The military pastor led a prayer that said, quote, "Let their days be few, replace them with godly people, plunder their fields, seize their assets, and cut off their descendants." Should we be interrogating Catholics and fundamentalist Protestants to determine if they may begin killing doctors or hospital staffs? Should we purge the General Boykins from the military who say that our wars in the Middle East are really Christianity versus Islam because our God is bigger than their God? Should we be investigating the family, the religious cult with its headquarters on C Street in Washington, D.C., that has brought so many of our members of Congress under its sway? Bryan Fischer is with us. He's the Director of Issues Analysis and host of Focal Point for the American Family Association, a conservative group, their website, afa.net. And Bryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tom. Good to be with you. Can you hear me okay?
I can. It's a little distorted. You're a little too close to your mic, or your gain is a little too hot. But other than that, I can hear you.
Okay, that's good enough?
Yeah. Okay. I think we can do it. Bryan, you have written. I'm reading this article. No more Muslims in the U.S. military. You're suggesting that Nidal Malik Hassan, the psychiatrist who went nuts and killed these 13 people, because of him, you want to purge the 400-plus Muslims who are serving down at Fort Hood and the tens of thousands of Muslims who are serving throughout our military services. Do I get that right?
Well, Tom, I think what you're kind of missing is the point here that Major Hassan belongs to a religious tradition that in its holy book, in its most sacred book, instructions, commands that come from the prophet himself, the prophet of Allah, Muhammad, repeatedly instructs his followers to kill infidels.
Have you read the book of Revelations, sir?
To slay them wherever they can be found, which means that, and we need to realize that the U.S. military, it's not a social club. It exists for one purpose, and that is to protect the safety and security of the American people. And I would suggest to you, Tom, that it's foolish to invite into our military people who belong to a religion whose holy book teaches them that they have a sacred obligation to kill Americans.
I have to assume, first of all, the word Americans does not exist in the Quran, and I have to assume that you have never bothered to read, for example, the book of Joshua or the book of Revelations, in the Old Testament or the New Testament.
Well, do you find...
It doesn't seem that you know what you're talking about. No offense.
Well, Tom, do you...
I've actually read those books. In Joshua, God explicitly tells Joshua to go into the city of Ai, among many others, and kill every single living thing, to cut open the bellies of pregnant women, to kill the dogs. In Revelation, it talks about how Jesus is going to come back, and there's going to be massive murders. The four horsemen are going to ride. God is going to, or Jesus is going to be killing people all over the world, and the righteous will be part of that. Only 144,000 Jews are going to be left in the Middle East, and they will have converted to Christianity. I mean, it's a book drenched with blood.
Well, maybe, Tom, maybe you should invite Jesus to come on your program and ask him to explain what he's going to do when he returns. You brought me on here to talk about what I think, about what Christians believe, about what the New Testament teaches about the responsibility of Christians. We follow the Prince of Peace. There is no command in the New Testament for Christians to go kill the infidels. There are repeated admonitions
there is in Revelations.
The Quran. There are repeated admonitions in the Quran for followers of the Prophet, for Muslims to kill the infidels. Americans are the infidels. We are the great Satan. We are idolaters in the eyes of the Quran. So we have people in our military who have a solemn and sacred obligation to kill American infidels wherever they can be found.
Okay, so Bryan Fischer, please don't filibuster me, Bryan. We have Navy Chaplain Gordon Klingenschmitt. This guy, he's in the military, and he has called for he used the word fatwa against Mikey Weinstein and Barry Lynn, and he said, cut off their descendants. I mean, if you really want an example, I mean, the murder of George Tiller. You've got, a Christian terrorist murdering people just a couple of days ago. I mean, or a couple of months ago. Adolf Hitler merged a Protestant church into the Nazi state and appointed Bishop Mueller as the Reichsbishop and declared positive Christianity as the basis of his 1,000 years of peace. It's not like Christianity is entirely a religion of peace any more than Islam is entirely a religion of violence. There are millions of Muslims all over the world who would reject any interpretation of the Quran as saying that you and I should be killed.
Well, then that's fine, Thom. If they reject that interpretation of the Quran, that's fine. But this is right out of the Quran. These are the instructions from Muhammad. I'm not making this up.
I'm not making it up. They're right in the Old Testament. It says that.
Here's the command from the Quran: make war on them until idolatry shall cease and God's religion shall reign supreme.
And do you know what the first commandment is?
Major Hassan was taught in the Quran.
But Bryan, you know what the first commandment is?
I'm assuming you're going to remind me.
Well, I'm wondering if you know.
You shall have no other gods before me.
And what does Deuteronomy and Leviticus? What do they say that you shall do to somebody who is an idolater?
Well, Thom, you're kind of missing the point.
You're supposed to kill them.
No,
you're supposed to stone them to death.
Well, maybe you should bring a Jewish scholar in to talk about the Old Testament.
But my point is, if you're trying to portray an entire religion based on a book that was written hundreds of years ago.
We're talking about the New Testament, comparing it to the Quran. There is no command in the New Testament for Christians to kill infidels.
Read Revelation.
There are repeated commands. Well, no, you find a command in Revelation that instructs Christians to go out and kill infidels. You won't find it. But you find repeated commands in the Quran to kill infidels.
My point, okay, maybe we can just, I don't know, maybe we can even agree on this, Bryan Fischer. AFA.org is the or .net, I'm sorry, because we have about only 30 seconds left. It seems to me that this is a failure of military intelligence. This guy, if he was motivated by fanatical religion, should have been caught. And that whether it's a fanatic Christian or a fanatic Muslim, we need to purge them from the military. Do we agree on that?
Tom, I will guarantee you that if they tried to run him out of the military because of what he posted on the internet, who he was talking to, who he was hanging around with, you, Thom, would have been in the front of the parade saying, "We can't do that. This is America. We don't do that in America."
No, I think that Gordon Klingenschmitt should be run out of the Navy, just like I think that this guy should have been run out of the Army.
When, Thom, when should he have been run out? Tell me the point at which he crossed the line. When should he have been run out of the Army?
Well, when he started, actually, I don't know enough about him to be able to actually answer that question, Bryan. Bryan Fischer, AFA.net is the website.